2020, the year of coronavirus. There hasn't been a lot of outside events going on that we can go to, but as far as things that are appearing on streaming media, there's a bunch. And one of them was just released 2 days ago, and that is the new edition, aka Unsolved Mysteries 5.0. The new edition of Unsolved Mysteries was just released, and I'm going to review it for you in the best way I possibly can. Before I really go into reviewing the new Unsolved Mysteries, I need to give you all a little bit of history. Now, most of you know the history of the show was on from 1987, 2002, and then there was the Fans Farina edition, and all that stuff. So, and a lot of that I cover on my other Unsolved Mysteries video on this channel. But this one, I'm going to start right at 2008, because if I give you a little bit of the history, it'll kind of be a nice lead into this review of the new Unsolved Mysteries. So, in 2008, Unsolved Mysteries fans were at a crossroads. The show had been off the air for 6 years, and its host, Robert Stack, had been deceased for 5 years. Added to this rough patch was the fact that the Lifetime cable channel had stopped airing reruns of Mysteries in 2007. However, in the spring of 2008, it was announced that Spike TV, which you now probably know as Paramount Network, Spike TV would be reviving the show. This new edition of Unsolved Mysteries began airing in October of 2007. The show was quickly referred to as an insult by longtime fans. The Spike TV edition of Mysteries was simply a rehash of old cases from the original 1987 to 2002 run. Even worse was that Robert Stack's brilliant host and narration were replaced with a bland old man named Dennis Farina. Now, personally, I think Farina did okay, and I think he gets a little bit too much of the blame for the show's awful presentation. The old cases were edited down into shorter versions with new graphics and none of the ambiance nor the great background music of the Robert Stack episodes. Also, the original theme song was replaced with a rock ballad because the creators of Unsolved Mysteries, John and Terry, thought that the show needed to be rebranded to reach the male-dominant audience of Spike TV, even though it had just finished a successful 15-year run of syndication on Lifetime, which is television for women. Why, oh why, did they ever attempt this hot garbage of a mess? Come on, man. 175 episodes of the Farina-hosted episodes were aired on the Spike TV, but due to lackluster ratings, surprise, surprise, the show was moved to, back to Lifetime of all places, where it aired just the Farina episodes for over 8 years. Can you believe that? Now, it was around 2010 when fans of the Robert Stack episodes went over to YouTube, or even a couple years before that. The fans went over to YouTube to watch old segments that were uploaded from old VHS tapes. But unfortunately, in 2013, this practice was eliminated by stupid Screen Actor Guild regulations, or also John and Terry. However, for the next 4 years, fans continued to upload old segments for YouTube and tried to outsmart John and Terry. And one segment of segments survived a full year because they put code words and phrases in place of the UN name. But John and Terry still figured it out. Then in January 2017, things began to look up for longtime fans as Season 1 of the original Robert Stack episodes were released to Amazon Prime Video, and then subsequent seasons were released throughout the rest of 2017. And then the next year, Netflix announced it was bringing back Unsolved Mysteries for new episodes. And finally, on July 1st, 2020, the first 6 episodes of the new Unsolved Mysteries was released to Netflix. Now, many fans were very skeptical of the Netflix episodes because they had been promised a revival of Mysteries back in 2008 and instead got a remake of old cases. Ugh. And there were some hints of the Netflix release were made public that caused even more cynicism. The show, the new edition, would not have a host or narrator, and it would feature only 1 segment per episode instead of the usual 4. The old edition of UM was a hit because over a 1-hour period, viewers got to experience a variety of cases and not just one. You could start the hour with a fraud segment, then go to a UFO case, follow that with an unexplained death segment, and then end the hour with a Lost Loves featurette. Myself and many other fans of the original Robert Stack UM had teeny tiny lowly expectations for the Netflix version of UM, but still I decided to give the show a whirl in the swimming pool that we now call streaming video. The first case of the new Unsolved Mysteries is called Mystery on the Rooftop. It starts with the wedding of Ray Rivera and his bride Allison. I immediately think, oh boy, this is going to be such a drawn out episode. But after 90 seconds of wedding fluff, we immediately get to the crux of the case, which is Ray leaves his house in a hurry one evening in May of 2006 and jumps off the roof of the fabulous Belvedere Hotel in Baltimore, Maryland. The burning question here is, was this a suicide or did somebody push Ray off the roof? At the 2:13 mark of this episode is where the real litmus test of this new edition of UM begins, and that is the theme song. The theme song is not great. It is spectacular. It consists of a fabulous piano remake of the original theme used in seasons 1 through 7. And at the very end of the theme song, long-time fans of the show get a wonderful gift in a hologram image of Robert Stack. It was wonderful to see John and Terry go back to the original theme that made the show such a classic to begin with. I was very worried they would try to redo the theme song again, as they did in 1995, 1998, and 2001. But good for Mr. Cosgrove and Mrs. Dunmuir, John and Terry, for not messing with the good thing. Now we get into the case. The first case is 52 minutes in length, but it never seems drawn out. Now, I will admit I grew up in the Baltimore area, so I'm a little biased when I hear about the Belvedere Hotel, and even more local biased when the star of this segment is the fabulous Jane Miller of WBAL TV 11 News. Live, local, late breaking. The 52-minute episode goes by quick, with a lot of interviews of many family members, police officials, and of course, my girl Jane. The thing I like best about the new version is the on-location filming. For the first 6 seasons of the show, UM, This show had filmed most of their segments at or near the exact location where they took place. Unfortunately, this started to decrease as the show went into its later seasons. But in the documentary style of filmmaking, there is no faking the locations or scenery of the show. Also, we are presented with a variety of scenarios of how Ray may have jumped off the hotel roof. And then let me give you a quote here from Mrs. Muir about the show. Okay. Unlike Unsolved Mysteries is hardly a passive viewing experience. It's an experience for people to watch these stories and put themselves in the place of these people. If you were Alison Rivera and you're standing on the roof looking at where your husband's body landed, what would that feel like? By choosing to eschew a host or the overdramatic reenactments of the earlier seasons, this reboot puts the people most affected by its stories front and center. According to Muir, we wanted the actual people whose mysteries these are about to be their own storytellers. Okay, the next episode is 13 minutes. That's the name of it, not the runtime. This one is also very, very good. Very interesting case to follow. It starts out with a brief 30 seconds clip of the victim's son, and then the theme music begins. Right after that, we begin the case of Patrice Endries, who was a hairstylist from Cumming, Georgia. Okay, now this case begins as a missing person case, but then as the storyline progresses, it becomes an unexplained death case. But it is not a suicide case because if you watch the episode, you'll see that over about 100 of her bones were discovered in the forest of a neighboring county. And just like Ray Rivera's case, the runtime here is 52 minutes. And this goes really quick because there's a lot of scenery of North Georgia and plenty of interviews with a wide variety of people. And also there's a conflict between Patrice's son Pistol and her widowed husband Rob. And one more thing that I find great in this episode is the mention of secret evidence by a member of the local law enforcement there in Georgia. And this evidence is something that only law enforcement and the murderer know about. And one neat thing here is that in its original run, Unsolved Mysteries had to work with law enforcement to make sure some elements of the case did not get released onto the broadcast. So this is a nice little behind the scenes nugget that longtime fans like yours truly will definitely enjoy. Okay, so I will say Mystery on the Rooftop and 13 Minutes are two of the best episodes of the 6-episode volume of UM. And I would recommend these episodes to anyone who's a fan of the true crime drama genre, not just we UM junkies. Let me take a little drink of water real quick. So, the next case that I watched, it's listed as the last case, but I actually watched it as the third case that I watched, was Missing Witness. This episode is not as good as the first two, and it does seem to be very drawn out and confusing because of the number of family members and different relationships involved. Before I actually get into the crime taking place, the synopsis here is it's about a young lady by the name of Lena Chapin. Lena Chapin claims on tape that her mother killed her stepfather. Several years later, she is issued a subpoena to testify in court, and then disappears. Okay, and then another case in this volume was No Ride Home. That's the other case I watched. But unfortunately, this episode seems like it's a 46-minute episode that really should only be 10 minutes. Kind of the same. Missing Witness, a little bit less of a drag, but that's 48 minutes. But No Ride Home is definitely a dragging episode because basically you read the synopsis. There's not a whole lot here. It reads Alonzo Brooks vanishes after a party. His body is found a month later, and then it's like, what happened? You know, did he kill himself? Who killed him? There was not a lot to this case either. Definitely not a 13 minutes or a mystery on the rooftop. Definitely. Okay, so I started watching the episode House of Terror, but after 4 minutes of hearing nothing but French and just reading subtitles, I was done. And the sad part was the original run of never did a case in this format. So why start now, John and Terry? John and Terry. In the last episode, I believe, the last one in this season was Berkshire's UFO. I have never liked watching the UFO cases on the original, so I'm not going to start now either. Okay, so it's weird how when started airing in 1987, it was a trailblazer for the true crime genre. But now, 3 decades later, it is a follower of shows such as Dateline and North 48 Hours. But if you are a fan of the show Disappeared, you will definitely enjoy the new Unsolved Mysteries. And as for the rest of us longtime fans, I recommend watching Mystery on the Rooftop in 13 minutes and then go back and watch the Robert Stack episodes. So, in order to come up with a fair score or a fair review score for the new Unsolved Mysteries, I will average the scores of the 4 episodes I did watch. Rooftop and 13 minutes both get a perfect 10 out of 10. They were absolutely superb, very well done. Missing Witness and No Ride Home get a 5 out of 10. When I average those scores together, I get a 75 or a C. However, because John and Terry did such a wonderful job with the opening and closing theme music, I will bump that grade up to 80% or a B minus. It should be known that 6 more episodes will be released on Netflix before the end of 2020, and based on some initial strong ratings, #1 baby on Netflix for the first few days. Based on strong ratings, I predict that there will be many, many more Unsolved Mysteries episodes to follow, and hopefully they'll be done more like Rooftop in 13 minutes and less like No Ride Home and that Alonzo case. And that's a wrap. See you later.